Welcome to Scandinavian MIND Weekly, our show about the current trends and events within business, tech, fashion, design, culture, and more, from the Nordic perspective of our team of editors and contributors. Today on the program, the Swedish startup ecosystem is Europe's highest per capita, according to a new report. We're also going to talk about why Web2 investors aren't cut out for the Web3 world. Also, Epic Games is acquiring music platform Bandcamp, and we pay tribute to an iconic magazine retailer in Stockholm. I'm Konrad Olsson, editor-in-chief and founder of Scandinavian Mind, and I'm here as usual with Roland, Philippe, Kretzschmar, editor-at-large, and our junior editor, Erik, Sedin. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Morning.
Quite an eventful week for all of us. I think we're all in this kind of 2022 bubble of working hard. But we're going to take a look at some of the stories that we've been publishing online this week, because our senior editor Johan has been busy, even though he's back in his prime, traveling around Europe right now. He was in Helsinki last week. Yeah, he was in Helsinki last week. He was in Copenhagen this week, and he's going to Paris next week for various presentations and trade shows. So yeah, really, we're back at some kind of prime. I don't know what that means.
I think
he was actually in Tampere. He was a bit the hipster choice, not even Helsinki.
Exactly.
Even better. Wow. But I think I should reevaluate my position on declining all press invitations. Maybe I should start to evaluate them.
For sure. There's lots to experience out there, but it's also lots of work to do on the home front. So we're happy we have you on. But he's also been busy publishing stories. I also just mentioned a new exhibition at the Röhsska Museum in Gothenburg just opened the other day with a few of the most interesting sort of upcycling and high fashion brands out of Sweden. We have Rev Review, Huda Kova, Ayaya, and Louise Chin are all there, and so we highlighted that. That's worth checking out. We also published the first story from our next print issue, which will be out next week. So I'll say next week's pod is going to be the big issue 3 podcast. We'll look at that, but we have our first story out. It's Nanna and Simon Wick, founders of the Copenhagen-based design and fashion label Division, which we highlight. Also, upcycling brand. There's a lot of those coming out, and I think coincidentally, I don't know why, but the upcycling brands are currently also the most kind of interesting from a fashion and design perspective. There's something interesting happening there, and of course we are covering it. But I thought we'd just take a little closer look at a story that was published the other day about a report from Tillväxtverket, short name with a long English title, Swedish Agency for Economic and Regional Growth. They have a program called Startup Sweden to support Sweden-based tech entrepreneurs and companies. And they have now published a report on the sort of value of the Swedish ecosystem. So last year, Swedish startups secured a record 7.8 billion euros in VC investments.
And what's the benchmark here? How do we compare to other countries in Europe? Do you know?
Yeah, well, according to the article, the value 239 billion is the highest per capita. We have 35 unicorns founded in Sweden, 20 plus future unicorns as they list in this platform. I don't know how they calculate that, but it's also worth mentioning that Tillväxtverket, together with Business Sweden, Vinnova, and the Swedish Institute, some of the like a power group of these Swedish institutions working to support the industry. They have now launched a new digital platform called Sweden Tech Ecosystem, where, according to Lisa Nordlund, the communications manager at Startup Sweden, where they're showcasing data on Swedish startups and scale-ups. So this is something, well, it's also a new report, but you can also follow this trajectory on this new platform. All right, we have an investment theme on this show this week. We're now going to look out globally into the world and talk about why Web2 investors aren't cut out for the Web3 world. There's been a story out this week. Roland, you've been looking into this. Set this up for us.
Yes, so first a disclaimer, I'm by no means any expert into either Web2 or Web3 investment. So, this is really a layperson's kind of perspective on this. However, I think it is interesting. It's a trend. I think it's worth to observe and follow from Scandinavian Mind, because, I mean, just given the update we had just now about the startup scene in Sweden, the startups that we are talking about are mainly Web2 startups, right? So let's see how many Web3 startups will emerge from Sweden or Scandinavia.
Shall we do just a short primer on Web2 and Web3 before we move on?
Sure. I mean, quickly, Web2 is basically what you experience at the moment. That's the current websites, platforms, app services that you experience. Then we have Web3, which is more built on a decentralized blockchain kind of structure, where you have some of the metaverse platforms, you have the whole area of crypto. So yeah, that's in short. But Google it. I think that's the best way to deep dive. There are many different ways of describing the differences between Web2 and Web3.
Well, this goes to the heart of the story you're about to tell.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it is an emerging area. And as always, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. But there is obviously a lot of interest from investors in this. Also, given that in the past year, we've seen huge boom in NFT sales, which we talked about a lot in the podcast. We've seen, obviously, a lot of development in the crypto area for the past couple of years. So it's understandable that also, let's say, traditional venture capital firms and investors and angel investors want to go into Web3 projects, but it can be legally tricky. I mean, looking at, generally speaking, and, again, by no means I'm an expert, but to my understanding, a traditional venture capital firm only invests up to 20% of the funds in liquid assets. And this is, as a starting point, a challenge that, the venture capital firms have to rethink the way they invest and how they distribute their investments. And we've seen some examples in the past months, year, of big VC firms setting up crypto-specific or Web3-specific investment funds. We have Sherry Ventures and our cover star, Sophia Benz, who is leading that latest fund. I mean, we should talk to her about this and unbox it. But, generally speaking, also the whole area of Web3 is by default, let's say, hard to control. I mean, the whole idea of decentralization is obviously to distribute control and ownership, right? So exactly. That is in itself kind of complex for an investment firm, right? And a lot of these founders in the Web3 space, and I would say specifically in crypto, they are also quite, let's say, rebellious, and they are there to kind of disrupt the current financial model and system. So I would say that a lot of these crypto founders, they either want to stay anonymous by default, which is in itself a challenge, right, if you're an investor. Yeah. And also they usually don't want single investors to own more than a couple of percent or 5%. So there is this kind of philosophical difference at this moment, at least in time, where the Web2 and Web3 founders, have a different philosophy on what they're here to do, what their place is in the financial ecosystem, etc. And then, the list goes on and on, but I mean, there is the legal aspects of it. It's hard for anyone to understand truly the legal consequences of these different Web3 platforms, blockchain, decentralization. It's really hard. But on the other hand, this is also the beauty of, let's say, blockchain. It's the legal aspects. It is the contract that comes with the transaction that is traceable, It's fixed, it's permanent or eternal, whatever you want to look name it, right? But it's and then there is this exit part, which is also important, obviously, that there's obviously, as an investor, you want to do an exit. Now there are different mechanisms of how you do exits in the Web2 space. I think the IPO is maybe the most, let's say, common one if you want to do big exits. But in Web3 space, it's a bit different. We haven't seen many examples yet. I mean, yes, we've had some companies that have listed, but not that many. So yeah, I mean, listen, again, I'm not an expert. I think it's interesting to observe. I think we should unbox this. We're probably going to read much more about it in the next year or years. So yeah, that's basically the kind of backdrop to this story. I don't know if you have any spontaneous comments, Konrad or Erik, on this.
No. I think it's super interesting that you bring this up, and it's one of those kind of ongoing stories that the whole ecosystem and the whole industry is trying to sort of wrap their heads around and trying to figure out the next steps. There has been quite a lot of debate around this topic. The past few months, there was a very famous tweet by Jack Dorsey, who recently quit the CEO of his company Twitter to just completely focus on his company. It's called Block now, I think. But they have a payment system called Square, and he's really into crypto and blockchain. But he had a tweet that said, "You don't own Web3, the VCs and their LPs do. So the venture capitals do. It will never escape their incentives. It's ultimately a centralized entity with a different label. Know what you're getting into." And I think that was one of the sort of iconic statements from a person who's really kind of pro blockchain. But I know he's been into quite a lot of debates with sort of some of these big investors, Andreessen Horowitz and so forth, who has created, as you said, I think Andreessen Horowitz, they have a famous investor called Chris Dixon, who he's leading up their kind of the Andreessen Horowitz Crypto, a special entity which invests in these types of technologies. But it was interesting. I'm bringing this up because when you started talking about this, I remembered an article or blog post by Scott Galloway, a famous podcast lecturer, professor in the US. He has a podcast called Pivot and a podcast called Prof G Show, which I recommend. But he had a blog post in January where he highlighted. He's very good at doing graphs and stuff, highlighting different data on this topic, and he highlighted the fact that, I mean, there's huge inequality in crypto right now, and that could be due to the fact that it's a new technology. But it's interesting that something that proclaims to be decentralized, kind of for the people, by the people type of thing, where 95% of all Bitcoin, which by then was valued at $800 billion, is owned by 2% of the accounts.
Yeah.
It's like the majority of all Bitcoin is owned by a very small group of people, right? And I think the ratio for NFT market is about 80-20, so 80% of all the NFTs are owned by 9% of all the accounts out there.
But you have a good point there. I mean, and I think we're unboxing different topics here, connected, obviously. But just to touch on Jack Dorsey's tweet there, that I think that is also part of the problem, that we're talking about Web3. It can, in the worst case, just be remembered as this kind of marketing buzzword. To be honest, like I think we discussed this in the podcast earlier. What is what's our prediction on the future of Web3, and as a term, right, as an umbrella, comparing it to maybe the trend around VR, AR 5-10 years ago, right? But I still think there is something interesting in the fact that the traditional venture capital firms, and especially the LPs behind, the limited partners behind, basically the where the money comes from, that and they don't understand Web3. And I think that is something fundamental, because there is a philosophical shift in how we view technology. Then there is the other side of the coin, as you say, Konrad, that yes, there is a huge inequalities within the Web3 space, within the crypto space. I would even push it to say that, you know, the big majority are owned by white guys or guys at least, as well, right? So it's not only an inequality in let's say ownership, it's also inequality in who owns it. So that's going to be a huge challenge. But yeah, I mean, we could go on, I guess, for the rest of the day and unbox this topic. But fundamentally, at the end of the day, the story here is, if you're interested in investment, if you're interested in new technology, it's not a given that you would understand how to
No.
invest in the Web3 space.
No,
And
yeah.
sorry, just one more comment. I'm also, I mean, again, not an expert, but have not yet seen VC firms coming out from the crypto space. So I assume that at the moment, the big investments in crypto comes from within the community, from maybe, as you point out here, Konrad, certain individuals which have huge assets in crypto, and they reinvest it within the crypto space. But I have not yet seen any sort of VC structure formed coming from the crypto space by crypto punks, right? So yeah, it's worth investigating more.
I think it's also, isn't it also so that the investments and stuff that are happening on kind of two levels. One is kind of stuff that is actual crypto. I mean, new coins, new crypto assets, NFTs, and so forth. And the other is kind of different services that's layered upon them, which are run by more like traditional companies. So I think that's a difference as well. I think many investors going into this are kind of investing in companies like that are creating new wallets and stuff like that service the crypto
Exactly.
ecosystem, whereas something that's actually in crypto, where the assets are on the blockchain, that's where it gets much more kind of murky and difficult to assess. And also just extracting value from crypto into sort of fiat-based currencies and traditional, values. I also think the sort of jury is out on how that will happen. I have friends, just as a side note, anecdotally, but I have friends who are very highly invested in different blockchains and cryptocurrencies, and there's a huge issue on how to bring them back into like a Swedish krona or a euro and so forth. It doesn't come naturally. There's a lot of costs involved in it, and since the ecosystem is so volatile and fragile, exiting a cryptocurrency that you have perhaps invested in could crash the whole thing, right?
That's a good. I mean, basically two good points again here, Connor. One is on the fact that the big investments that we see coming maybe from the more Web2 space or traditional VC firms is around the infrastructure, right? So creating all these services, platforms, as you say, that serve the crypto community. And this is maybe what Jack Dorsey is alluding to, right? That at the end of the day, the whole space is still controlled by traditional VC firms or investors, because all the services that we see, the major services or infrastructures, are still dominated by traditional VC money. But the other topic that you bring up is very, very interesting. I mean, if being a crypto billionaire doesn't mean that you're a billionaire. I mean, yes, on paper you're a billionaire, but as you say, as soon as you want to realize your funds, then it can either crash the system or it's too expensive to I mean, there's a lot of issues related to that. And I think we've seen many examples in the press on that topic, right? Like, they're basically crypto billionaires, but still living in this kind of one bedroom or studio flat in a basement somewhere, because they can't realize their funds. Yeah,
exactly. And it goes back to something we talked about last week, that a lot of the activity in NFTs and so forth is run by this sort of inner crypto circle, the people who are active in it. And I think, I mean, there was actually, I can't remember the name of him, but the guy who bought the Beeple artwork for $69 million dollars. I think it's coming up like exactly a year ago now. I think it's in March last year. That guy, there was an interview in Financial Times, your favorite weekly, Roland. He talked about why he bought this and that why he will never sell it. But it was obvious that this is a guy who's been invested in cryptocurrencies for a long time, and that's where he has a lot of value stored in Bitcoin and Ethereum. So I think that my point here being, I think there is for people who are trying to grasp these concepts right now, trying to understand how these markets work, maybe want to go in because they feel like there's this huge opportunity. I mean, 69 million, right, for one JPEG. We got to get in there. We gotta buy stuff. We gotta produce stuff. We gotta sell art, and many people are trying. But 85% of OpenSea is, I understand it, based on art that's either fraudulent or copies or things that doesn't move or doesn't sell. So the point here being, there's still this kind of disconnect between the emergent crypto world and the traditional ecosystem, and that's pretty much why we wanted to talk about this subject here.
Yeah,
and
maybe this is the last comment today on this topic, but we discussed a lot NFT art, obviously, and art, how the art space has been quick at accepting cryptocurrencies as payment, etc. I mean, and that's obviously a way out of the. I mean, you have huge assets in crypto. You can buy art, and then you can sell that art for fiat currency. And obviously, that has been debated a lot. It's kind of, you could wash a lot of illegal money in this way. I mean, so yeah, it's a space that is complicated, hugely fascinating. But again, tying back to the original story, let's see how the VC world will move into this space. Let's try to get some guests on the podcasts on this topic.
Wonderful. As always, we are trying to grasp concepts and asking a lot of questions. We'll certainly get back to this topic. All right, next up, Epic Games is acquiring the music platform Bandcamp. Erik, you've been looking into this. Tell us what this story is about.
So yeah, this story is around 2 weeks old now. So it's been marinating at the very back of my mind for a while now. So I have some takes, and the tech world in general has a lot of takes. I'm really reading news about this daily for like 2 weeks now. But basically just a little background check. If you don't know what Bandcamp is, it's a music platform, but it's more like an online record store, like a music community in one. So kind of like MySpace in a way. And it was started because musicians wanted to fight these big bad tech companies, the big bad wolves, Spotify, Amazon, Apple, that just don't give small musicians any money. They take too much commissions, so that's why it started. And Bandcamp actually, the artists and the bands and the labels, they get 82% of all sales, which is crazy when you compare it,
All right.
And they even have something called Bandcamp Fridays, which is once a month, and it's an initiative by Bandcamp where they give all of the money brought in to the artists and the label. So 100% the artist gets 1 day a month, which is quite crazy when you think about it. But still, since 2012, Bandcamp has been really profitable. And, only last year, which I thought was interesting, is people spent $206 million on that platform, and they spent it on digital albums, like for download, digital tracks, but they also spent on vinyl records, CDs, and what I thought was interesting was they bought 500,000 cassette tapes through Bandcamp. So even cassette tapes seem to be coming back.
I love it.
And then general merch and t-shirts and stuff, of course.
Wonderful.
So that's a bit cool. But the thing is here, what does Epic want to do with these, kind of like organic, bare feet, kind of smelly indie bands? That's what a lot of people are kind of trying to get their head around. And I guess, like the Scandinavian Mind podcast take is they're gonna enter the metaverse. They're gonna be like this big conglomeration step. They're gonna really step into the metaverse, and they need music and they need social gatherings and stuff. I don't know if you've seen, for example, the new Batman movie or like the new Star Wars movies or the Mandalorian. Like they kind of Epic Games owns Unreal Engine, which is like a 3D program,
Yeah.
which has kind of been like the green screen killer, you know. So if you've seen the new Batman movie, they're not really using green screens; they're using artificially built 3D environments, and then they shoot
There's
in front
a
of that.
wonderful documentary you can see if you have Disney Plus on how they recorded Mandalorian in what they call the
Yeah.
volume, which essentially is a round big studio where they project landscapes and stuff in on the walls so that the actors actually see the environments, and they're not in this kind of green. They're in real suits and they see kind of a real landscape around them, and that has more a realistic effect on sort of the light on their face and stuff like that, close-ups and that type of stuff.
Yeah. And speaking of that, I don't know if you've seen, speaking of the fact that they can see the environments, I don't know if you've seen Ian McKellen when he's playing Gandalf in the new Hobbit movies, how sick and tired he was of like running around in green screens. He said like he hated the whole experience. Because like the early Lord of the Rings movies, they were kind of there in New Zealand, like getting their hands dirty. But
Right.
like the Hobbit movies, he was just in a green room for a couple of months. And he said it was the worst experience. And you can see like from the behind the scenes, he's so fed up. So yeah, anyways.
That's funny.
Yeah, you should probably Google that or YouTube that. So basically, Epic Games, they have Fortnite, they have, we've talked about this on this podcast, on this platform. They have in-game concerts on Fortnite, and this is like a very, to me at least, very clear way of viewing the metaverse, getting, online community or whatever. But with what I think, like the Scandinavian Mind podcast take, obviously, is when building this Unreal Engine, like the 3D program, it's free to download, so people can make movie settings like in the Mandalorian and the Batman, but they can also create their own games, like full games with like an online mode or a story mode and everything. So this is where I think this could be a way for game developers to get a hold of a great library of soundtracks, to get integrated when they build the app. So I think of it a good way to make use of cheap and varying music that's also not mainstream. It's not attached to big contracts and labels. And if you want to build a game through Unreal Engine, you want a sad piano track when a character dies. Probably there's some like cool piano guy on Bandcamp that Epic Game now owns, and they have that in the library.
Is this in any way connected to NFTs, or is there mention of NFTs or crypto ecosystem relating to this? Is Bandcamp is its own?
I haven't read anything about it. I'm not sure how that would play into effect, because of course NFTs could be MP3 files and stuff. Of course it can, but I haven't read anything about that. But anyways, like one guy that kind of opposes to what I'm saying and what I think they're using this for is, which actually yesterday, Music Business Worldwide, they have a podcast called Talking Trends, and the Music Business Worldwide's founder, Tim Ingham, he said that this is Epic's way of telling Google and Apple to basically fuck off with their, because they have kind of beef, Apple and Epic specifically.
Yeah,
because we know, they had this big dispute over the Apple Store. For people that forgot, Apple takes around 30% of commission when you buy something with the Apple Store, and Epic, they were just not having it. So they had a big feud, a big argument in court even. So Epic, they take 12% commission of everything. And that was Apple's kind of big argument in court. Like, hey, you're really struggling on there. Like, you're not really profitable. So why would we take 12% when you're not doing so well? And they lost, of course. Epic, that is. So Bandcamp, like I said, they charge around 10 to 15%, and they've been really profitable. It's been going really strong since 2012. So this Ingham guy, he says, I'm going to quote him directly here from the podcast. This all leads me to believe that the key factor in Epic Games buying Bandcamp had nothing to do with the metaverse or music's place within it, as trendy as a topic that it may be. I believe this was a simple strategic buy for Epic because it gives the company a powerful asset in its fight to force big tech, Apple or Google, to reduce commission rates in their app store. So it's kind of like Epic they're so powerful, and they're just buying this organic platform just to tell Apple and Google off, like, hey, you can't do this to us anymore. Which I thought was interesting.
I think, on a macro level, I also think it's interesting. I think it's interesting the connection you did with Unreal Engine and what's going on there is that there's so much happening in the gaming space right now that sort of trickles out to other industries, and it's going to be super interesting to see, especially when new generations comes up. My daughter's 11; she's on Roblox every day. Of course, they're going to be adding services and experiences there that are not just games, that, related to entertainment and music and other experiences. And it's going to be super because and this ties into the discussion on the metaverse. We don't have to go into that much, but when you have a platform with such a strong engagement rate from your users, it's only natural that you would add different services. And if you also are available to create virtual worlds or experiences that are more like immersive and in 3D, I think this is super interesting. And maybe this Bandcamp deal is just a step of the way, and we'll see much more development on this front.
Yeah, of course, and it could also be as easy as if you're a profitable company, you want to expand your portfolio. Epic is like, hey, this, they want to take shares of the market. Like Bandcamp is doing great, let's just buy them. It could be that easy. But people have been talking a bit about this for 2 weeks now. Like people just can't, because I think Bandcamp is so organic and people love it so much. They're like, oh, it's gonna die, they're taking everything from us.
All right, I just want to end the show with a little bit of a testimonial from a local story here in Stockholm. One of my favorite magazine retailers, and actually my local magazine retailer, a local Pressbyrån here in central Stockholm, in the Mood Galleria, has been run by an iconic a person called Malin Lövgren. So anyone who has bought magazines in Stockholm the past 20 plus years has probably bought magazines from Malin, and she's now shutting down tragically. Just by coincidence, I happened to step into the store the other day, the day before she shut down, and it was kind of surprisingly emotional moment for me, because and a true testament to what a local retailer can actually mean in your life. But I've been buying magazines. I've been living in Stockholm for 21 years. She has, for the majority of those years, been my local retailer. I even remembered when talking to her, talking about the various shops she's been running around the central Stockholm. It was called Pressstopp before that, and I think even a different name before that. I even been buying magazines from her when traveling to Stockholm as a teenager, when she ran sort of the most well-equipped magazine store in Stockholm. I know, Roland, you have similar memories when I brought this up.
Yeah, no, this is a testimony how old I'm getting, which is a bit weird. But I'm 44. I've been buying magazines from Malin and earlier from her mother since I was 15. So that's I mean, just count yourselves. That's many years. I remember actually on Kungsgatan, central Stockholm, they had this magazine store. Her mother ran it. Malin used to work there extra. She's the same age as me, so she worked extra after school in the store. And actually, what was interesting, when they peaked, there was this Wayne's coffee shop just next doors.
Yeah.
And this is how provincial Stockholm was back then. But when Wayne's Coffee opened up the first store on Kungsgatan, just next doors to Pressstopp, it felt like I was in New York or London. It felt, yeah, it was crazy. And obviously I was a teenager, hungry for just for anything new. But yeah, that's how provincial Stockholm was back then.
Yeah, well, Wayne's Coffee, obviously, kind of like the first kind of international type coffee shop. We got based on Starbucks and those types of places. I think she actually mentioned when I spoke to Malin the other day that was the first Wayne's Coffee in Sweden. So probably
exactly.
the
It
first.
was the very
Yeah,
first. Exactly. Yeah.
the very very first.
So
No,
it's
I mean,
sad.
and
Yeah.
it's sad. And right now in central Stockholm, there's no place as of today. Actually, we record this on March 18. There's no well-stocked magazine store. You're gonna have to take yourself to Kungsholmen or of course Södermalm, where there's a Pressbyrån, and also our retail partner Papercut, of course, which many people know about. They have a great online store as well, where you will be able to buy the next issue of Scandinavian Mind starting next week. But just as a tribute to Malin Löfgren, thank you for all your hard work. She said she was going on a longer vacation, just trying to take care of herself for a while, but I assume she will be back in some format, stocking magazines somewhere. She has always been a strong supporter of Scandinavian Mind, and just previously that Scandinavian Man, always giving us a prime position in the store, and giving us feedback from customers and asking about the next issue. So a big shout out
Konrad,
to Malin.
Without sounding too much like Monocle, but I mean, please support your local retailer. That's how you build communities, right?
Those are good parting words for this week's issue of Scandinavian Mind Weekly. Please follow us on Instagram and our social medias, and also subscribe to our newsletter. Visit scandinavianmind.com/newsletter. Next week, we will be pre-launching our issue 3, our third print issue. Stay tuned for that. We'll be out on Papercut store sometime next week, and I'm assuming we'll dedicate the next week's podcast to talking about that. Until then, have a great weekend, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.